Hey there, so if you're just starting to learn French, this is the video you really need to watch. This might be the only video you will ever need to begin your French learning journey. So in this video I will define what a verb is, and then I will go through the subject pronouns in French, and finally I am going to talk about the concept of conjugating verbs, which is a concept that you unconsciously already know, but it's super important to be aware of. So we're going to conjugate two very popular verbs that we can't live without, which is the verb to have and the verb to be in French. So to be in French is être, and to have is avoir. They are the backbones of the French languages. So let's go through it. So what a verb is. So a verb is basically an action word that shows either an action, but it can also show a state or something that is happening. Okay, so verbs are actually important because they tell us what is going on in a sentence. I'm going to put a slide here so you can just read through it. So it can also describe a state of being or condition. For example, those verbs, to be, to seem, to have, to know, they are state of words. Yeah, I am happy. It's a verb. She has a new car. It's a verb. Yeah, she has. It's a verb. We have also modal verbs. So those express necessity, permission, or the ability to do something. So like verbs such as can, could, are very important words that we use every day in our English language. So you must finish your homework. You must finish. It's a verb. She can swim very well. Then we have our two very important verbs that I'm going to talk about today, which are called the auxiliary verbs, also known as irregular verbs. So those are the helping verbs, and those are the backbones of the language. I really want to talk about it. I will go through first the personal pronouns that we need to know in French. So we have those personal pronouns in English. So we have je, which is I, tu, you, which is singular you, by the way. For one person, we have il, he, elle, she. We have on, which is one does something, but it can also mean we. We have nous, which is the real we, first person plural, of course, we. We have vous, which is you, but for singular, formal, or plural. Okay, you can use vous for a group of people. We're going to talk a little bit about it in a minute. We have il, which is they for males, and we have elle, which is they for females, and they have an s at the end, but we do not pronounce them. So I repeat: je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle. Notice that I do not pronounce the s at the end. Alright? Even though they're plural, we do not pronounce it. They are actually silent. So there's a difference between tu and vous, as I said, as I aforementioned. Tu is more informal. You use it for friends, family, children, pets. It's good to use on one-on-one informal conversations. You use tu for relaxed settings, whereas vous is more formal. It's you that you use for strangers, people in authority, older people who are older than you, or you use it in professional context, formal settings, or when you're addressing to multiple people, because as I said, vous is also used for you for a group of people. I can say you for one person, I can also say you for a group of person, but in French we differentiate these two you. When you're addressing to multiple people, you actually need to use vous, regardless of the familiarity. All right. Now, the concept of tu and vous in French can also be found in other languages. Okay, there are other languages that also share the same similarity. Okay, they also have this kind of concept. I'm going to put here on the screen other equivalent of the subject pronoun vous in various languages, such as English, Spanish, German, Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, Russian, Chinese, Mandarin, of course, Chinese Mandarin, Japanese, Arabic, Korean, Greek, but I'm pretty sure there are many more other languages that actually differentiate between you for one person and you for a group of person, or maybe a you that is formal and a you that is informal. Now, I would like to talk about the concept of conjugating. So what is conjugation? So let's conjugate actually. Let's actually talk about conjugation. So conjugation is basically the process of changing the form of a verb. So according to the subject pronouns and tense. For example, if I want to conjugate the verb to speak, okay, to speak is the infinitive form, by the way. So if I want to conjugate to speak in the present tense, I would have to write it that way, right? So I am using all the subject pronouns, as you can see here, and I am changing the form of the verb according to the tense as well. So I speak, you speak, he speaks, we have to add a S here in English, that's how we conjugate. She speaks, it speaks, we speak, they speak. I have successfully conjugated the verb to speak in English, right? Now we have also different tenses, right? We have, for example, the past tense. I spoke, you spoke, he spoke, she spoke, etc. Right? We also have the future tense, and I can go on and on. Okay, we have other tenses in English. But the main focus here is that you now know what I mean by conjugating. When I want to conjugate, I want to change the form of the verb according to the subject pronoun and the tense. Okay, so let's actually try to conjugate the verb to speak, but now in French, which is the verb parler. Okay, so parler, which ends in ER, by the way. So we have je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, on parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle, elle parle. You can see that I haven't pronounced all the letters at the end. You can see that the conjugation is actually very different from English. We actually have different ending according to the subject pronoun. So je parle, I repeat, ends with the I, tu parles ends with es, il, elle, and on, those three, they ends with the I. We have nous parlons, ons. We have vous parlez, it ends with ez. Il parle, elle parle, the plural form of they, with he and she, but the plural form, ent. It ends with the ent, and I do not pronounce the nt, they are actually silent. So we say il parle, elle parle. I do not pronounce the s as well, they are silent. Okay, the s on il and elle, they are silent. So I know you have a lot of questions about how to differentiate when speaking, but that really depends on the context, okay, when you are inside the conversation. We're going to learn more about it in the future videos that I will post. Now, let's conjugate now the verb to be and to have, because as I mentioned in the very beginning of this video, they are the backbones of the French language and of the English language as well, because we can't live without these two auxiliary verbs. Let's conjugate the verb to be. And by the way, they are irregular verbs, which means they do not follow the same patterns of our regular ER verbs ending. So verbs that ends with ER have a regular pattern, and I'm going to put it here on the screen, different verbs in French that ends in ER, and you can see that I can conjugate any ER verbs in present tense that is regular, any regular verbs ending in ER in the same way. They all follow the same pattern. Okay, to speak, to listen, to watch. Okay, so those verbs follow a pattern, but I will talk a little bit more in another video. Now, let's look at irregular verbs. So irregular verbs actually do not follow a pattern, and they're actually extremely important, and you can only learn them. You must learn them. You have actually no choice to learn those verbs. Okay, you have to learn by heart. But first of all, before I forget to mention, you actually need to learn the subject pronoun order. This is actually a universal order. Okay, so je, tu, il, elle, on, nous, vous, il, elle. They are super important to know. All right, so now I am conjugating the verb to be, être, and let's start with I am, je suis, you are, tu es, he is, il est, she is, elle est, one is, on est, we are, nous sommes, you are, but the formal version or plural version, vous êtes, they are, ils sont, they are again before girls, elles sont. Okay, so I will repeat one more time, and you can be active with me. You can actually repeat after me. Je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, on est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. Now we also have the second verb that you must learn in French is to have. So repeat after me. I have is j'ai, you have tu as, he has il a, she has elle a, one has on a, we have is nous avons, you have, the formal or plural version is vous avez, they have is ils ont, or they have for a group of girls is elles ont. Okay, so I repeat. J'ai, tu as, il a, elle a, on a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont, elles ont. Here we go. So practice, learn them, and if you do struggle, then you really need to practice and put a lot of effort. I promise to you, French will become much easier if you do learn how to conjugate these two verbs. So remember, the goal of this video is to learn how to conjugate the verb to be and to have. They are the backbone of the French language. You learn these two verbs, and I promise to you, everything will be easier. I'll see you next time in the next video.